Hi, I am Michael and I'm here to show you the progress I've made on Simplicity over the last few months. One task I did was to create a nicer looking title screen. For this I drew some pixel art for the background. This is also the first ever pixel art I've drawn that has a perspective, which is quite hard as the foreground needs to have the same pixel size as the background, but I think it looks decent. I have also drawn the font for the text and wrote a shader that fades out the background for a nice transition. Another task I had to complete was to restructure the save files. I don't want to get too technical here, but basically I indexed the building types in an alphabetical order before, and if that order was changed, the game did things like this. Luckily this is an issue of the past now, and I can create new levels and add new building types without having to worry that the save files mess up. On the topic of creating new levels, I have also made something I will show you in a minute. But first I want to talk about some changes to the rules of Simplicity. The point of these changes is to give more decisions and strategical options to the player and to make it more obvious what's actually happening on the map. The first change is that now resources can only be used once a turn. This requires the player to actually decide what he wants to use his resources for. As a consequence of this change, buildings now only produce what you actively instruct them to produce. You do that by clicking on the production recipes. The windmill, for example, can turn corn and mechanical power into flour. The lumberjack can turn two forests into one wood, and the forest can't do anything. After all, it's just a forest. With this approach, buildings can hold multiple recipes too. The lumberjack, for example, could also turn two forests combined with an axe into 3 wood, which is more efficient but also more expensive compared to its first recipe. For these new rules, I also remade some of the UI. Here's how to read it properly. The symbol in the center tells you what kind of resource is needed. The number below on the right tells you how many resources of that kind are needed. The number below on the left tells you what range the resources need to be in. RP is an abbreviation for range points in this case. On the bottom there's also a progress bar showing you how many resources of that kind are available divided by the amount you need. If you hover over a recipe with your mouse, you can also see where the resources you need are available. I still need to visualize the range though. Besides the recipes that you activate manually, there are also the bonus resources that are given to the player automatically at the beginning of each turn. These are also very important, as the resources from the previous turn are always getting deleted no matter if you use them or not. This creates a nice cycle. The more buildings you have, the more bonuses you get in the following turn. And the more resources you have each turn, the more buildings you can build. Your goal needs to be to make the cycle as efficient and fast as you can, because you only have a limited amount of turns. At least that's an idea that I had recently. The last thing I will show you today is the level editor I made. Even though the idea of an infinite procedurally generated world is very tempting, I don't think I am capable of making a generator that creates interesting worlds at the moment. I think it actually could fit the game, but only if it's done perfectly, and in my opinion that risk is not worth taking. Because I also want to finish Simplicity in a somewhat near future. So I decided to go for handcrafted levels, at least for now. The most important aspect of the level editor was to make it fun to create levels, at least for me. And I think I pulled that off. I sometimes just find myself creating little levels just because I enjoy it. I can also instantly play the levels, test them out, and then go back to editing again. As you can see, a lot has happened in the last few months, but that's it for today. See you in the next one.